We have a guest on the phone who I'm very excited about, if I can remember which mouse answers the phone, and that would be this one right here. Ladies and gentlemen, please say hello to the one and only Bob Gale.
Hi there, Erik. How are you?
Sir, it's an honor to talk to you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much.
We're all huge Back to the Future fans here, but I'm sure you hear that all the time.
Should be.
So let's tell everybody the exciting news here and why you're calling.
Well, what's happening in New York City on October 15th and October 16th is Back to the Future in concert at Radio City Music Hall. And this is a totally awesome event in which the movie is projected, but the score is played by a live orchestra while you're sitting there.
That is so cool.
It is so cool. We did this at the Hollywood Bowl at the end of June. We had 16,300 people there, and it was totally awesome.
So we're going to break that record at Radio City, right?
Well, you know what? I'm not up on the current seating capacity of Radio City over 2 nights, but maybe so, or maybe they'll just pack them in the aisles.
No, screw that. Screw the Hollywood Bowl. We're going to do this thing.
Okay, we got also Christopher Lloyd is going to be attending.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
So cool.
As well as James Tolkien, Mr. Strickland,
Yeah.
Slacker, and of course the one and only composer himself, Alan Silvestri.
Wow. So will they be there just for the event, or are they going on stage and?
I think we're all going on stage to introduce the movie and wave to the audience and let everybody know that for whatever they paid for their ticket, they actually got to see some celebrities.
That's good. Will you be roaming the floor so everybody can come over and say hi and
Well,
thank you for this masterpiece?
I think you can get VIP tickets for a sort of meet and greet thing, and I'll probably be around afterwards to say hello, shake hands, take pictures, and so forth. Depending on what the security arrangements are.
Right.
And also, you should know that Alan has written some additional music for this presentation.
Oh, wow.
Because everybody's there to hear music, so there is score in some sections of the movie that there is not score if you saw it in the theater or watch your Blu-rays or DVDs. So that's very cool.
That's awesome.
And the movie looks beautiful. It's a digital transfer DCP projection, and I got to tell you, when we went at the Hollywood Bowl, my wife turned to me and said, "This is like watching the movie for the very first time." And several other people that were there came up to me afterwards and said the same thing, because the excitement of the crowd, coupled with how great orchestral music sounds when it's played live, it's a fantastic experience. And if you haven't ever seen Back to the Future in an audience, this is the best kind of audience to see it with.
Are you amazed when people say that they haven't seen the movie at all? And I'm not saying like kids 15 and under, but when you see grown adults and they're like, "I've never seen Back to the Future," does that like dumbfound you?
Well, if they're missing teeth, no, it doesn't. But if they do have a full set of teeth, yeah, it does.
I don't know how you could not have seen it in some capacity. I feel like growing up, it was on all the time on like cable and on network. And even now today, you still run into it.
It was on
once in a
HBO
while.
all the time.
It was actually on last night. I was watching it.
It seems to be on somewhere, sometime. Yeah, it's absolutely. Listen, 30 years ago, the movie came out originally in July 1985, and 30 years ago, if somebody had traveled back to 1985 from 2015 and said to me, "Hey, Bob, you know where you're gonna be on October 15th? You know what's going on in New York City, the Radio City Music Hall?" And they told me about this, I'd say, "Man, what are you drinking? And could I have some, please?"
Are you tired of because it's so ingrained, at least in American culture, and I'm sure worldwide, but do you ever get tired of having to talk about Back to the Future? Because I know you've had other stuff, but it's just like everybody always jumps to that
It's
one
a cultural
piece.
phenomenon.
You know what? No, I do not. It's flattering. It's wonderful. I mean, this is what every filmmaker dreams of, having a movie that is beloved as Back to the Future is. I was actually talking to Bob Zemeckis about this recently because he's out there doing publicity for his great new movie, The Walk, and he just said, they asked me about The Walk, but then everybody wants to ask me about Back to the Future, and he at first he seemed a little irritated by it. I say, well, you know what, Bob, all those people were kids when the movie came out, and this was probably one of their very favorite movies. And he took a moment and he said, yeah, you know what, I remember when I met Hitchcock, and all I wanted to do was talk to him about Rear Window and Psycho. So it's great. All I can say is, hey, thank you.
I'm curious to know, do you have any involvement in the, for those of you who don't know, there was just a new Blu-ray anniversary edition that's coming out later this year, and there's a new short starring Christopher Lloyd that's part of the Blu-ray as Doc Brown. Did you have any involvement in that short?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of the gatekeeper of Back to the Future content. So although I didn't write it or direct it, they did make sure that I signed off on the script, and when they shot it, I went because who doesn't want to see Christopher Lloyd playing Doc Brown again? It's great. It's a lot of fun, and also on that Blu-ray is a new documentary about the restoration of the DeLorean, the original A-car DeLorean that we used in all three movies.
Oh wow!
Had been left kind of to just rot on the back lot at Universal.
That's what happened to Stargate. They left it out in the desert there, and then when they went to go back to do the series, the whole thing was just a mess.
Yeah, well, this is a common thing because the studios and the movie companies don't understand how important this stuff is to the fans and to culture in general. So luckily, I stepped in and said to Universal, hey, we got to do something about this, and if you're not interested in doing something about it, I'll find somebody who is. And they said, no, you're right, we should do this. And so there's this new documentary documents how this was done, and the restoration was done by the fans, which is so cool, because nobody cares more about these great old movies than the fans, more so, I think, even than the studios, because those guys they're just paid to do their job, but our fans love whatever it is, whether it's Back to the Future, whether it's Star Wars or Godfather, you pick it. The Wizard of Oz. I mean, if somebody told me, hey, you want to polish some of the bricks on the yellow brick road, I'd say sure. I'll spend an afternoon doing that. What the hell?
So as the gatekeeper to all things Back to the Future, and
who's the key master?
I know you've talked about it in the past, that Back to the Future, there's not going to be a fourth one, which is awesome. I don't want a fourth one, to be quite honest with you.
Good, thank you.
And hopefully there's not going to be a reboot or
Please.
reimagination of it,
you.
because really Back to the Future is perfect the way it is.
Thank you.
It should be cherished the way that it is, and it should just stay that way. It shouldn't be touched by anybody else. I mean, clearly Christopher Lloyd coming back to do a Doc Brown short,
That's great.
the hair on my arm stood up just from the teaser, and I was really excited. But I'll make an exception for that. But other than that, I think it just needs to be the way it is.
Well, Bob Zemeckis and I totally agree with you. That's why we've taken drawn a line in the sand and say, hey, this is not, we're not going there. We're not doing what everybody else wants to do. And and they say, well, you guys can make a whole lot of money. And we say, well, we've made a lot of money. We don't need to, we don't need to sell out our children for this. It's just.
Do you still get approached about it?
You know what? I have not been approached about it in a really long time because, as I say, I think Bob and I have put that message out there, and everybody's heard it loud and clear. And like you guys, the overwhelming majority of people are saying, "Hey, that's great. They should leave that alone. Let's not touch it." I mean, we've all seen these franchises where they go back to the well one too many times.
Yeah, the remakes are horrible.
And you're a sucker because you say, "Well, I got to see that because it's such and such." And even though you go and you know before you even buy your ticket it's going to be crap, but you still go. I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it?
What do you do if you get that phone call one day and they say, "Look, the studio's looking to reboot Back to the Future"? I think that's when I just start losing my shit.
We're going to make the DeLorean a Fiat.
I was just
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. Well, if that happens, so there was. I mean, the rumors are hilarious. There was one going around a couple years ago that Justin Bieber was going to play Marty McFly.
Oh, God.
What was he going to be, a douchey Marty McFly?
That's horrible.
You know, or maybe they'll. Well, I'll tell you one thing that they can't do. They can't do the gay and lesbian version of it because Marty would definitely not be born, right?
But, I was even thinking about this the other day. I don't think that Back to the Future would work as a reboot. Like that whole concept of what the future is now, as opposed to, like when Back to the Future 2 came out, right? You were really excited about the future that they were presenting to you. But the way technology is evolving now, like I kind of feel like that concept of what the future is in our face all of the time. That how would a new Back to the Future make that special? Well, I don't know that it could.
And the other thing that's interesting, because again, Bob and I were talking about this too. You know, the difference in the fashion in the clothes that people wore between 1955 and 1985 was, really, really powerful. But if you take somebody dressed in 1985 clothes and have them walking around the streets of New York City, nobody's going to look twice at them.
It's called Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's where I live.
An H&M near you. Kanye West's new line.
Well, with going, like you said earlier about if you went, from 2015 back to 85 and tell them what was going on and everything, they're coming out with stuff from the movie that you didn't think they ever would. They was it last year or the year before was the big to do over the Nike Air sneakers for Marty McFly in the future. Those came out. Now the hoverboard toy they put out there, and they're trying to make the real hoverboard now.
That's right.
Finally.
Yeah, and we have drones. There's the USA Today gag.
Right.
Where the drone, and we've got drones.
And maybe
now.
Miami will win a World Series. We don't know.
Well, the Cubs might. I was actually just down. The folks from Miami had me down for Back to the Future night at Marlins Stadium exactly 1 week ago because when we predicted that there would be Major League Baseball in Miami, it didn't exist. So we picked the wrong league, but we got the city right and the concept right.
Screw Nostradamus. Bob Gale is the prophet.
Yeah. He really is.
He's batting almost 1,000 here.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
With the Nike AutoLaces, with the Air McFlies, you created such a stir within the sneaker community that people are paying upwards to $7,000 for this shoe.
That's their own fault.
Well, that was a charity thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, Nike does not have the self-lacing shoes on the market now.
No, they don't.
Ones that do, and you guys saw the article earlier this week about the marathon runner in Kenya, and where his custom-made Nike shoes, the insoles fell out of them or something.
Right.
I mean, wow, if they can't make a shoe that the soles stay in, that's kind of. Whoa.
You know what? I was just thinking, too, for the live event, it's probably too late to get this done. But if you could make playbills for this event that looked like Gray's Sports Almanac and you gave them out to everybody, I think that would be a real
that's a good
collector's
idea.
item.
I'll suggest that. I don't know if they can turn it around that quickly.
Let me just translate what Bob's saying here. And he goes, that's the 1,000th time I've heard that, you idiot.
But could old Biff hand them out, though, as people are walking in?
Well, save the clock tower pliers. That's pretty easy to do.
Yeah. There you go. That's cost affordable.
Well, that thing burnt down a few years ago, right? Didn't the set actually get destroyed?
Yeah. Part of the two sides of that street got burned to the ground, and they rebuilt it and reconfigured it. So it's a little bit different than it was. And people have asked me, "Well, are you sad about that?" But I'm not, actually, because it means that
there's no fourth movie.
Square that's in Back to the Future is forever that version.
Right. Well, as Matt had said, he's glad that they're not going to make a fourth movie, and we hope they don't reboot this film anywhere at any time. But let me ask you about some of the side projects that they've been doing with the Back to the Future franchise, as far as the figures that Funko has put out, and of course, Back to the Future's involvement in the new Lego Dimensions that just came out.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Have you seen that yet?
Yes, I got a chance to play it. It's amazing.
It's great. And then the Doc Brown levels are coming out, I think, in February. You can get the Marty McFly add-on pack now. But the idea that you can have Marty McFly interacting with Batman and Homer Simpson, it's totally great.
So when they approached you with this kind of thing here, did you get a little standoffish? Are you a little bit overprotective about your franchise?
No, because when they on that one, that was an easy yes, because you guys saw the Lego movie, right?
Right.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what's great about that is that it totally captures the way kids play with their toys.
It does.
You know,
Kids, adults.
Eric.
Me.
You know, you put those sex dolls in there with the, with the G.I. Joe, right?
Jesus, Bob.
Wow. That took a turn.
Wow, Back to the Future 4 would be completely different.
We're going to reenact that car scene.
The doors go up.
So anyway, yeah. So they said, this is what we want to do. I said, oh, okay, I get that. Sure, let's do that. Let's have Doc Brown on the Yellow Brick Road. What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, I got the chance to play it. It's obviously out now, so everyone can pick it up. And like you said, the Doc Brown stuff is coming as an add-on very soon. It's definitely fun. Now, you have these things. You have Funko figures out. There's constant T-shirts ever since that movie came out. This franchise has just not gone away as far as posters and T-shirts and things like that.
There's also a new book coming out on October 20th called Back to the Future, The Ultimate Visual History. It's a big coffee table book. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you don't know what to get somebody for Christmas, get them this book because it has more information about Back to the Future than has ever been in one place before, and it has all these little additional props that are that you can pull out of the book. So there's a lenticular photo of the disappearing photo where you got Marty and his brother and sister that disappear.
That's pretty cool.
And you have like replicas of the Jaws 19 poster and Doc's flux capacitor drawings and the letter that Marty writes to Doc Brown and the Western Union letter that Doc writes to Marty, and all that stuff are inserts in the book. So go check it out on Amazon and get one because it's. I think Amazon's selling it for only $30 right now. It's a bargain. It's really great. Then we got a new comic book coming out on October 20th that is going to explore some of the sort of untold tales of Back to the Future. So for the fans that want to know, well, how did Marty and Doc actually meet? We tell that story in the first issue.
Oh, I thought it was Tinder, but all right.
Grinder.
Grinder.
You guys are. We
I
have
will
to
not
go back
have
to
you besmirch
1982.
this
Those
family
things didn't
franchise.
exist.
I have a question. Have you seen Rick and Morty by any chance?
Of course.
What do you think about it?
I think it's funny.
No, hey, this seems familiar.
Yeah, it is. But, imitation, greatest form of flattery.
Did Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon reach out to any of you guys and say, hey, look, we're doing this thing. It might look like what you did.
Back to the Future fan.
Yeah.
And he's not a big fan of the sequels for some reason, but he loves the original. And he's got, a really warped mind.
I got to tell you, talking about the reboot was disturbing when you mentioned Justin Bieber, because as the woman here, Marty McFly was my biggest crush as a kid, and I can't imagine Justin Bieber. Ugh.
We're not going to let
Horrible.
that happen.
Then please don't let that happen.
She used to pause with the VHS line when he was laying in his Calvin Kleins on the bed.
Yeah, you don't even want to know. That's my biggest crush. I mean, Alex P. Keaton was okay, but once Michael J. Fox was Marty McFly, that
It was all over, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I actually got a question that I have to ask.
Go ahead.
Who does time travel better, Doc Brown or Doctor Who?
Well, this is
The TARDIS
a
or the
no-brainer,
Flux?
guys.
Well, because
What's cooler, a DeLorean or a phone booth?
I like the phone booth
hold
and
on,
the
sir.
DeLorean.
It's not a phone booth. It's a police box.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, whatever.
I think Doc Brown is a Time Lord.
Phone
Let's
booth
leave it
is
at
Bill
that.
and Ted.
Right. And if you saw the epic rap battles of history battle between Doc Brown and Doctor Who, it's left for you to decide.
Yeah.
There is no clear winner.
Well, I was waiting for Bugs Bunny to show up and say, What's up, Doc?
So who's going to be playing the epic guitar solo live during the performance?
Well, that will be left to who was it? It was it's the movie. It's only the score.
Dave Grohl.
It's not.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who actually played the Paul Hansard. I think actually played the guitar solo in the movie.
Let me ask you then, with the guitar solo and what have you, what did Chuck Berry say about using his song in that way in the movie?
Well, he laughed. I mean, we had to make a deal with him.
Of course.
If he didn't,
He's
if he didn't
notorious
think it was
for being
funny,
paid.
If he didn't think it was funny, he would say, get the hell out of here, guys. But he thought it was funny. At least when with the check accompanied it, he thought it was funny.
Well, it's always funnier with the check accompanied.
We're talking with Bob Gale, the producer and co-writer of Back to the Future, not only one of the best movies, but one of the best franchises that's ever been made. When you were writing this movie, did you insert any parts of your life into any of the characters there? Like, did you grow up? Did somebody call you chicken? Because that seems to be a big sore spot in this movie.
Did you peeping Tom on a tree?
What planet does an American boy have to be on where nobody ever calls him chicken, and he isn't interested in looking at a girl with no clothes on?
I don't know why Emilio threw that part in, because everybody wants to do that. But the chicken part, I was just wondering if that was that something that came from your own life experience?
No. I mean, it wasn't. Look, everybody gets called chicken. I was not tormented by bullies, nor was Bob Zemeckis. That was just, everybody has their run-in with a bully, but it wasn't a constant source of anything. There was my next door neighbor when I was a little kid was a professional photographer, and he had a dark room in his basement, and he would invite the kids in the neighborhood over to see how film was developed, and he was kind of a Doc Brown inspiration, I guess. The idea that here's this guy that's got all this cool equipment in his house, and he can make magic happen. So that was probably part of my sensibility in that. And I put all kinds of little references to my high school and stuff that only other kids that went to my high school back then would get. But that was always fun when I'd hear from them. I saw your movie, Gale, and when the guy says, "Let me give you a nickel's worth of free advice," when Strickland says that, I fell out of my chair, because that was our vice principal used to say that to everybody he nailed in the hallway for being tardy.
All right, because my other question was going to be, did you ever, go out and party too much and then break into a house that you thought was yours, but it wasn't, and somebody came running after you with a bat?
No, that's an experience I have not had.
The big live event for Back to the Future in concert at Radio City Music Hall is October 15th and 16th. Go online to get tickets. We put the link up on It's Erik Nagel on Twitter, so you can just click there and buy your tickets. Go and see this. You get to watch the movie. Christopher Lloyd's going to be there. Who else is going to be there? I'm sorry?
James Tolkien, Mr. Strickland, Alan Silvestri, the composer, and yours truly.
Mr. Bob Gale will be there. Go get tickets. Check this out. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Until, I guess, the 40th or the 50th.
They're doing it tonight.
I'm saying in New York. So go get tickets for that. Before we go, Bob, I got to ask you a question. This is coming in from our friend Mike from Masters of None. If you'll entertain some Back to the Future nerdiness, as if you haven't already. He has a question. Were there two DeLoreans in September 1885, the one that Marty ripped the fuel line off and the one that Doc just buried 8 months prior in January of 1885? And couldn't they have just simply patched the fuel line and siphoned the gas from the other one to the one that wasn't working?
That's a genius question.
This is not the first time that I've heard this question before.
Okay.
And there are two very good answers for this that both are applicable here. Number one, if you're a car guy and you know that you're going to store your car, put your car in storage for a year or more, or in this case 70 years, the first thing, well, it may not be the first thing you do, but you are going to drain all the fluids out of your car.
That's right.
Okay.
So Doc would have put it in the mine without any gas, without any oil, and if you rewatch part 3, at the drive-in movie theater, Doc tells Marty, now I've put gas in the car. He specifically says that, suggesting that there wasn't any when they pulled the car out. So that's number one. Number two is the time travel conundrum, which is if they were to go and disturb the car that Doc had already sealed up there, and which years later Marty gets out of there, and they break something on it, would that not create some sort of a time paradox that could screw up the space-time continuum? And Doc Brown is too responsible of a physicist to consider doing something like that.
I honestly thought you were going to go the William Shatner route and say, number two, it's a movie. Don't worry about it.
Well,
I like that they were too
number
plausible.
three,
Yeah.
but, I'll let William Shatner be William Shatner, and we'll let Bob Gale be Bob Gale.
Once again, the big Back to the Future live concert at Radio City Music Hall, October 15th and 16th. The link is up on It's Erik Nagel on Twitter there for you to buy tickets. Go check this out. It's going to be a great time. We're going to go. Mr. Gale is going to be there, and hopefully maybe I get to meet you in person, sir.
I hope so. Yeah, you guys come up to me and put a pie in my face or something.
I will come meet you, or security
I have
will
a
throw me
pie.
out trying. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. I appreciate your time.
All right, take care. We'll see you next in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
All right, take care, man.
Okay.
Bye.
Be continued.
To be continued. Nice.
Clever. He didn't say
So-
to be concluded. So that means there's more times with Bob Gale.
I like
There
to
you
put the
go.
emphasis on the ripping of the space-time continuum. So let us be responsible with that.
So we didn't just destroy all of time in existence.
Yeah.
That was very nice of him.
Once again, it's a movie.